Welcome to the Hound Talk podcast. We're here to talk everything hounds, specifically when it comes to big game. Mountain lions, bears, and bobcats. Along with the game we pursue, we're going to talk about the dogs we run and the families behind them. Enjoy some good conversation between houndsmen as we dive into what makes us live this life we live and how it all started. I'm your host, Dustin Clark. This podcast is sponsored by Cold Strike, a houndsman-owned business that was built by a family for families. Now let's get into it. All right, guys, I'm here with Connor Montgomery from Idaho. Connor, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hey guys, as Dustin said, my name's Connor Montgomery. I live in Idaho Falls, Idaho. I'm a second generation houndsman. My dad was a houndsman, so I've kind of grown up chasing the dogs and don't really know any other way. I hunt as much as I can, and we live for it. I mean, it's a lifestyle, as you guys all know.
Oh, I definitely understand that for sure. Let's see. I think there we go. Got you. So second generation houndsman. That's something that's I'm not me. I didn't get into it till I was like 19 years old. So I've been doing it since then for about 17 years. But what was it like just growing up as a kid with it? Some guys never got to experience that.
So, man, I that's a great question, and I gotta say, I don't think I'd be the same person that I am today without the dogs. To this day, I was about 5 years old. I remember my first lion getting, I watched it get treed. I was just a little boy, and my dad had a hunter. I don't remember exactly where we're at. We were in Utah somewhere, but anyways, we're on our way into the tree, and we got about 800 yards from the tree, and we heard the cat jump, and it came straight down the drainage to us. We seen it running across the drainage, and it does a little circle around the juniper tree, jumps up to the top of the tree, and then into the tree beside it. And in my mind as a little boy, that was about the craziest thing I'd ever seen. And I was thinking, oh, I hope he doesn't fool the dogs. I hope he ain't getting away right here. And my old man had some pretty decent dogs, and they flew down there and locked it right up on the right tree, and it was awesome. And that's pretty much where my addiction began. I mean, it's been nonstop for me ever since then. It's kind of all I think about. I know my wife doesn't appreciate it all the time, but she's accepting of the lifestyle, so gotta love her for that.
That makes a big difference. Yeah, for sure. And if I remember right, you've got is it one little kid or a couple that you take with you every once in a while?
Yep, we've got one little girl. Her name's Ember. And she's a she's a big motivation for me in supporting the clubs, the Colorado thing, the Utah Houndsmen Association, our little association up here in Eastern Idaho, the Eastern Idaho Houndsmen Association. She's a big drive for me, and supporting all of those clubs, because as you guys know, our sport is under attack constantly, and I really want her to be running hounds in the future. I sounds cliche, but I know she loves it. My wife and I this spring turned out on a bear in some pretty big country, and we ended up treeing it 4.5 miles from the nearest road. So it took us about 4 hours to get to the tree. We packed her the whole way, and she never complained, never cried. The only thing she said was she wanted to get out and walk on our way out. So I think that she'll be running dogs here in the near future. As soon as she's able to handle those suckers, I think she'll be all over it.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I understand that. I got 4, and out of my 4, there's 2 for sure that really love it. The other 2 like it. We'll see if they change their minds, but it's definitely taking your kids with you, especially for the first one, is a neat experience. It's pretty damn cool just to see their eyes light up, especially they first see the bear, they're lying in the tree, then it makes it all worth it for them. They're like, oh shit, this is cool. you know,
Ab-
and it's like you
Absolutely.
said, just, supporting those clubs that are at the forefront of fighting this fight against the antis and stuff for your kids. That's why I do it. If they could outlaw it tomorrow and I'd be fine. I'd just be an outlaw and end up going to jail or hiding in the mountains for a while. But I want my kids to have that right and have the animals there to chase and be able to, live the life that I love. So
Absolutely. I mean,
it
it's
it def
sorry, go ahead.
oh, you're fine. It definitely brings it home, when I ran before I had kids versus when my kids started going with me. Definitely, it made me have a more true appreciation for it and a want to preserve it.
Absolutely. I 100% agree with that. I'm actually just getting back from a little trip down in New Mexico where I had my friend Troy and his wife Des, and they had their three little girls with us. And I was a little bit jealous of them the whole time because my wife and daughter stayed at home to kind of hold the store down and make sure everything ran smoothly. But on an evening hunt, we ended up rigging a pretty nice tom and walking into that tree, and we were all expecting a bear to be bait up just the way it all. The dogs could really see the cat good, we'll just say that. And they were making quite a bit of
Yep.
noise. So we're sneaking into what we thought was a bayed bear and look up, and there's Longtail hanging down out of the tree, and seeing seeing their little girl going, "It's a lion!" Oh my gosh, I was jealous that I didn't have my little girl there, but it was a pretty neat experience to share with those guys. Anyhow, just the excitement on the little girls' faces, and cool tree to cool thing to get to make a tree with the whole family. So it's fun hunting with those
Oh,
guys, and I think the hound hunting is a great aspect and a great avenue to get the kids involved. So
oh, I agree completely. That's kind of why I started doing what I'm doing as far as, my social media and my business and now this podcast, eventually I want to get some kids on here and let them tell their stories. Even if it's just
absolutely.
like a 2-minute story about their favorite hunt. I mean, that's the fun stuff for me. But yeah,
Oh
that's really cool that they went down to New Mexico with you and the whole family got to see bear trees, let alone a lion tree, in the fall. So that's
yeah,
pretty
it was
awesome.
it was a super neat trip, and always fun to have the kids out there getting involved. And that's I think that's key in protecting the heritage, as you said, kind of touched on earlier. I mean, getting the kids involved is going to be key in fighting that fight.
Definitely. Definitely. We'll switch up just a little. So you're from Idaho Falls, Idaho. You're running lions and bears, right?
Yep, we primarily lions and bears. We've got a few bobcats here and there, but we don't have super dense population of them. And then coons. I'll hunt coons in the off season, but I don't really consider myself much of a coon hunter. It's
Yeah.
bears and lions for the most part where it's at.
yeah. Yeah. Coons are for when you get bored or want to get some puppies a little more time or just to get the dogs in shape.
Absolutely. Yes, sir.
What are you running for dogs then?
So I've kind of got a little bit of a mixed up pack right now. Growing up as a boy, my dad was always a plot and blue tick guy, and anyway, that's kind of what I started out with. And over these last couple of years, I've gotten into a certain line of walker dogs that I've been liking what they're doing. So I'd say about half my kennel's walkers right now, and the other half is grade dogs between plots and blue ticks.
Yep.
So
No, I understand that. Everything I run's all grade, so
yeah,
I
I'm
get
I'm
that. Um,
I'd have to say I'm an open
Go ahead.
book. I was raised as to papers don't catch game, but I like my paper dogs. It's kind of fun to be able to backtrack and see where they've come from. But at the end of the day, I'm an open book. I judge the dog off of how he wants to hunt, now, not anything else.
Yep. Oh, yeah. I understand that. I give people a hard time just for the color, but a good dog's a good dog. It don't matter. I just like to poke fun and get a rise out of people.
Oh yeah, you got to. It's part of it. Honestly, there's good and bad in
Oh,
everything.
yeah. Oh, definitely. There is, for sure. Um, so what you grew up in it, your dad did it. Seeing that lion really stuck with you, but what would you say is your favorite part about the whole lifestyle with hounds?
Hmm. That's a great question. My favorite part altogether, I really like seeing the development of a dog. When you raise a litter and you're in the back of your mind, you're thinking, I'm gonna have a really badass dog come out of this. That's everyone's intentions and thoughts when they're having a litter, but I'd have to say one of my favorite things is when you make that cross and hold on to a few of them pups, and you put quite a bit of work into starting them and getting them going the right way. And I guess my favorite thing would be when they hit about that year-and-a-half-year-old mark, and you're taking them into the woods and seeing them really click on and perform and start to catch some game and cross all the cross all the T's and dot the I's. I'd have to say that's about my favorite part, seeing a young dog, flip that switch and become a hound.
Oh, definitely. I understand it. That's probably real close to my favorite, if not my favorite, is just taking a dog from a pup and watching it develop and watching it do what it's bred to do naturally. I mean, you can help it. We can teach it a few things here. Old dogs teach it a few things here, but if it's not in that pup, it's not going to come out. And it's just to watch that internal switch flip, and all of a sudden it goes from being a puppy to a, oh shit, it's time to be a dog now. Like, that's, I love that. That's one of my favorite things, is just, and that's, I think, why I really took hold to these hounds when I first got into it, is because I loved working with dogs so much. And but this took it to a whole different level, from bird dogs to hounds, was insane.
Absolutely. And on that note, when I was, trying to reply to your question, I'd have to say my second favorite thing is when the dogs have something put up and they've had it treed for quite a while, and you get about 100 yards from the tree, and you go walking in there, and some of them dogs come up to see you and they're just happy as hell. Like, look, Dad, look what I got for you. I've been here for a couple hours waiting for you. I just love to see that excitement on the dog when you finally show up to the tree. So
Oh yeah.
that'd probably have to be my number two, I think.
Yeah. Oh, I agree for sure. That's the one thing. I think I've said this before, but like, a lot of people that don't do this and have never experienced hound hunting don't truly understand how much these dogs love their job. It's not a job to them. They love it so much and will push so hard that it's just to watch them, and the excitement that comes out of them when you find a track. I mean, you I can cut a lion track and get out of my truck, and once I look at it for a minute, my dogs know what's going on. They know it's game time. They know we found a track, and from then on, you can't keep them quiet. It's
Absolutely.
they truly, they live for it, and almost as much as, I think they live for it more than us houndsmen do, even though
Oh,
I don't think I'd like to admit that.
absolutely. I couldn't agree with that more. When people come at me with the, that's cruel or whatever it may be, if they're anti for it, I just every time my response is, well, are you against horses running? Do you have a problem with cows
Yeah.
mooing? Because it's about that
Yeah.
natural. I've a dog that I considered my lead dog for a lot of years. He was born at my house, and when he came out, about the time he could start running, 8 weeks old, we had a house cat in the garage, and that little son of a bitch, he'd have that house cat treat on the car, treat it, and it's natural. You know what I mean? He wasn't old enough. He
Yep.
didn't have any time for me to teach him anything. He just came out chasing stuff because that's what he was bred to do. Just like, you
Like,
know, a horse hitting his feet and starts running. You know.
yeah. Oh, exactly. It's just natural instinct that's inside them. That some of them it comes out easier than others, but eventually it's going to come out if that dog has it,
Yes, sir.
for sure. So, what do you prefer, lions or bears?
You know, it seems like about the time you get to the end of bear season, I'm ready to run a lion, and about 3 weeks into lion season, I'm ready to run a bear. So I'd have to say I'm a little bit more of a bear guy because I feel like the lions can get a little repetitive. But at the
Yep.
same time, I feel like it's slightly more controlled just as far as how much distance they're going to cover and whatnot. So there's there's good and bad to both, but I do get sick of stomping through several feet of snow to get to the tree. So I'd have to say I'm more of a bear guy.
I I understand that. Like when my first 10 or 12 years of running, I really was just dead set on lions, really loved hunting lions. And then the more and more my kids started to come, the more and more I started to change because they like the bears more. So if dad's going bear hunting, they really want to go. If it's lion hunting and it's cold and there's snow, every once in a while they're like, "Yeah, no, I don't want to deal with that."
Well, I,
I don't
I mean,
I don't
that's
want to
it,
do that. So,
100%. Like
yep.
I
It,
can't wait
it's,
to this winter is going to be our first real winter where I'm going to feel comfortable taking my daughter with me. Just because the cold is such a big
yeah.
aspect. You know, when they're two, they can barely tell you that they're cold if they can tell you that they're cold. So it's just kind of one of those things like where maybe if you're hunting out of the truck, it's probably okay, but if it gets hairy and you're hopping on a sled or hunting out of side by
Yep.
side, sometimes it's just tough to have them along.
Yeah. Definitely. Yeah. I gave up hunting off of a sled about 9 years ago, and I haven't looked back.
Yeah, I mean,
But
I'm jealous. Are you living in Arizona then? Or where are
I
you
am
living in
now. Yeah.
Utah?
But even in southern Utah, well, in southern Utah, where I've been for the past 8 years, I didn't even hunt out of a sled then. I just hunted country that didn't get deep snow, and if I did get deep snow, I went somewhere else and just avoided it.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah,
I hear you there, but I mean, where we're at, sometimes like this last winter was pretty mild. I got to hunt out of my truck for most of it, but the winter prior to that, man, I'll tell you what, it was deep. It killed a lot of our deer, and if you didn't have a sled, you didn't have very much country to hunt. So that's
no,
it's
I
a
I understand that.
one of those things. Sometimes it's like, well, I'm gonna have to get on the sled today, but I'd have to 100% agree with what you said. Anytime I can avoid getting on the snow machines, I do. I mean, that's
Yep.
when it becomes a lot of work,
Oh,
loading and unloading and dragging the
yep.
pull behinds and everything else. Am I
Yeah.
losing?
No, I get it. That's no. You there?
Yeah, sorry. I don't know why I keep on getting
Okay.
glitchy.
You're good. Yeah, I like when I lived up in northern Utah because I grew up in Cache Valley,
Okay,
and that was the only way we could hunt because they'd shut down all the roads, and
absolutely.
so snowmobile was the only way we could go in. So yeah, I got to where I hated those things, and then when I moved, I got swore it off, and now that I'm even farther south, I swore it off for good.
I do have to say I've been through a lot of snow machines in my life, and we've been running these four-stroke ski-doos, a little bit more like a four-wheeler than
Mm-hmm.
your classic snow machine, and they're a hell of a lot better for hound hunting. They're not much for hill climbing,
Yeah.
but as far as cutting tracks and pulling dogs, if you're ever in the market, I highly recommend one of those.
Yeah, well, if I ever decide to deal with that, I'll look it up, but I don't think it'll be anytime soon.
Fair enough. Fair
Oh,
enough.
yeah. Uh, so with the favorite part, what has got to be, what's the one thing that just, some days you just cuss yourself and say, I'm not going to run dogs no more? What's the one thing that will bring that out in you?
Um, Gosh, let's see. What is the thing that'll tick me off the most? I would have to say, gosh, I'm gonna say when you have a split race and you know some dogs are running the back track, and you know some dogs are going the right way, and you know you're gonna have to go back and pick up those suckers that are running the back track, and you're just pissed about it. I mean, I think that's got to be one of the number one things, or just being broke down in the woods on this last little trip to New Mexico I was telling you about. We had a bit of a bear bomb and split race, treed two bears, and I went and picked up one of my dogs that was solo on a tree and was headed into the five others and blew out my lower ball joint.
Oh,
Put the frame of my Toyota on the ground, and I had dogs treed about 4.5 miles from me, and I couldn't get to them. I was stuck there for about 5 hours till my friend came and got me, and
yeah.
we were eventually able to, gather up my dogs. But yeah, I'd have to go with backtracking dogs or broke down vehicles, I guess, is the biggest frustrations.
Yeah. I believe it. And
How
that's the
about
hard
yourself?
thing is, I mean, to, what's that? I think you cut out a hair.
Oh, sorry. I was just gonna say, how about yourself? What gets you going the most?
Uh, we're talking good or bad.
Oh,
So
I'm talking bad.
I
The good, the good. I feel like we're all pretty similar, but it seems like the bad can vary a little bit more.
definitely, I really think the bad for me is having a young dog that I can't figure out. Like there's some that are just natural and easy and I really love working with them, but it's that one that you know is in there. I just can't figure out how to bring it out of it. You know that dog's going to be a good dog and sometimes it takes them till they're over a year to finally come out, but that part just that'll piss me off. That and vehicle breakdowns, that pisses everyone off.
Yep. Yeah, slow starters. That's a great point. I didn't really think of that much, but I'm actually dealing with one of those right now, and he definitely we butt heads, but it's gosh, he's kind of hit and miss when he's really showing it. It's like, okay, that's why I keep on working with you. That's why I keep on feeding you. That's why I keep you around. And then some days, I mean, this exact dog on my last trip to New Mexico last year, I actually threw him in my buddy's box and I said, I'm done with this son of a bitch. You can have him. And we went hunting all day and we never got anything going that day. At the end of the day, every one of those dogs in his box was laying down and this sucker's hanging his head out staring me dead in the eyes. And I could tell he was telling me not to leave him. And so I made my
Yeah.
friend stop his truck. I jerked him out of there and shoved him in my box. And I gotta say, he knew I was gonna leave him because he's been a hell of a lot better hunter since then. So sometimes I guess you
he
just
got the
gotta make that
message.
little. You gotta give him that message.
Yep. No, I get that. Yeah, it was when I still lived up north. I had uh, a young dog that was just right about at a year, and he was making all the races and doing good, but I never felt like he was contributing. He was always just letting my old dog do it, and I felt like he was along for the race. And so
Absolutely.
a few times I'd keep the old dog back and try and send him, and he'd just screw it up. Wouldn't try unless that old dog was out. And I was like, I know you have it in you. And so I finally just got frustrated enough and I posted him for sale cheap. And a guy came down from Wyoming, bought him, called me 3 months later and says, "If you have any more dogs like this, I will buy every one of them." I was like, well, what's he doing? He says, "Oh, he leads every race. He trees hard. He's the best dog we have. He's my kid's best friend." I'm like, son of a bitch.
You're like, yep, I
But
should have held
and
on
it's
just
maybe
a
that
little longer. Oh, well, honestly,
yeah, it's I mean maybe that guy hunts different.
you I don't know. You. It's a love hate thing though, because sometimes I just feel like it's a connection with the handler, just as much as anything else. You know what I
Yep.
mean? That dog may not work out for you just because your style of hunting, but there's a guy down the road or the next state over that hunts a little different, hunts different country, different style, whatever it may be. That dog might go and be his lead dog. So
Yeah,
at the
for
same
sure.
time, you hate getting that call because it's like, shit, that was a good dog. But at the same time, if he wasn't going to work out for you, he wasn't going to work out for you. So that's just
Yeah.
the game
No,
we're all playing right there, I think.
oh, exactly, and the same goes for like a finished dog. I could have, I mean, depending on what you consider finished, but I could have a, 5-year-old dog that does everything great for me, and I sell it to a guy the next state over, and it can either be a great dog for him or it can be not what he wants because we all hunt different. We all expect different things out of these dogs. So for me, he works great, but for you, he might not. And so I agree with you when it comes to that connection with the handler and also the style of hunting and where we're hunting as well. Makes a big difference.
Absolutely, absolutely. Um, yeah, I between that and having younger dogs, kind of come up and sometimes surpass your finished dogs. I was talking to a buddy of mine, Caden Walton, today about that. Actually, he said he had to let a couple go this spring just because he had, up and comers surpassing, his finished dogs. Which going into a lion season, I'm kind of finding myself in a similar spot. I might be letting go of I would consider them two finished dogs, 4 and 5 year olds, just because you, back to what's my favorite thing. I have a nice pack of dogs right now,
Yep.
and there's really nothing wrong with these dogs that I'm looking at selling, but I feel like as a houndsman, to really get better, you've got to just that's the evolution of your pack. You're gonna have to let a good one or two go every now and again if you want to advance and maybe have the next best thing.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, I agree. I agree completely with that, and it gets it's hard when you just first start, like where I started, first generation, I just got a yearling that wasn't started and I started building from there. And I got to the point where I was like, no, I'm never going to sell any dogs. But then I kept bringing them in. And so I got to the point where it's like, well, shit, you're right. These young ones are starting to pass some of these older ones that are good dogs. They might not be superstars, but they're still good dogs. And so it took me probably a couple years to finally come to that realization that I had to let a few go to start building that pack. And then once you get that pack that you've been looking for, then you finally realize, all right, I did something right. This is what I need to keep doing. This is what I need to change, and look at yourself as a handler and also as like what you're bringing in and how it will fit in with your pack as well.
Absolutely. And that's, I don't know, we were kind of talking about this earlier back on the breed thing. I've got, half a kennel of walkers right now. And if you would have asked me that 10 years ago, I would have probably laughed in your face. But I'm an open book, and kind of touching on what
Yep.
you said, knowing what you're bringing in. And the longer you're out there, the more you're hunting, the more people you're going to bump into. I mean, I've got a lot of friends that I've met on the mountain now. And, just when you're out and about, you're always learning. Each time you're out hunting, you're out there learning something new. And the the people you meet, the dogs you bump into, you can kind of, see what you like. You can see what other people have. maybe someone out there you bumped into in the woods. Maybe you got tangled up on a couple rigs and you meet at the tree and they got a dog absolutely chewing that tree down. You might want to get that guy's number and think about bringing in a pup from him if you're a
Yeah.
little light on the tree or whatever. So I would have to say,
No.
just sticking with it is really important as far as that goes.
Hmm.
Evolving the pack.
So with these walkers, if I can touch on it, with these walkers, did you bring in a treeing walker or more of a running type dog?
No, my dogs they're all treeing walkers. The way I actually got onto it, my wife's stepdad, his name is Jim Warner. He was actually a houndsman
Hmm.
also, and so these dogs that I'm running now they're actually related to some of the dogs that he used to run. That's I got the lines tracked back from him, but they're
Okay.
they're treeing walkers for the most part. I'm not sure if you've had Kirk Rogers on this podcast or not, but he's a pretty big bear hunter out of Maine, and I've got a really nice dog out of his stuff too. And so, yeah, I mean, I've got a little bit, I've got some mixed up. I've got a dog from Easton Hall and Mike Pimentel, and she's honestly
Okay.
she's probably one of my lead dogs. She's a really nice dog, but she's a little bit different breeding than the other three. She's more that hickory nut stuff, stylish Harry. And
Okay.
then these dogs, the other three that are, the majority, they're going back to that kind of loose Bruce stuff. So,
Okay. So with these walkers, when you brought them in, are you noticing a difference nose wise or speed wise between them and your blue tick and your plots?
so yeah, mostly the difference that I see is jumped game. Um, these dogs that I'm running now, they seem to have a lot of leg, deep chest, for them big lungs. But the biggest difference I'd say is jumped game. I don't think can put a big gap in between these dogs. I think they've got the speed
Mm.
to, run right along with them and put good solid pressure, which, everyone's got their own opinion. I've heard all the shit about walkers being cowardly, but I think good pressure is better than dumb pressure in vet bills. So, if I've got a
I
couple
agree.
a couple that can run him down and keep him tired, then I'll turn in the hair pullers from there. But a great houndsman, one of the guys that got my dad into it, he once told me that brains catches more than all of the other traits combined. And I'd have to say I'm an honest believer of that. I'd say it's pretty damn true.
Oh, I agree
So
completely. You can have the you can have a gritty bear dog that does nothing but pull hair, but you have a smart bear that will pull a trick, or even a lion that'll pull a trick, do whatever like this. If that dog don't have the brains to figure it out, it ain't gonna catch it.
absolutely. So I guess back to your question, the biggest differences I have seen. Um, I feel like my walkers run the wind drift. They swing that track a little bit more. They're less, tunk, 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 track to track. They're more of head up, gonna run that wind drift. So I think they move a track a little bit faster generally, which is running that wind drift. I've found it can be good and it can be bad, which is why I'm more of a mixed pack guy. Seems like I always have that blue tick on there that is going to be right where that bear or lion has come through. And I've seen it. I'm not going to say that my walkers are perfect. They've blown a track and went left, got a little excited and had the old slow dog go to the right. And that's actually where it went. And, that's just the way it goes. And to be honest with you, that's why I've always looked at my hounds and I've always preferred a mixed pack. People ask me,
Yep.
why don't you have all blue ticks or why don't you have all walkers, and I've always kind of looked at my hounds as a football team. I mean, I know that's a little childish, but to me, each trait has got their own strengths and their own weaknesses, which is why I've always had a mixed pack. If you went into a football game with a bunch of quarterbacks, you might have a lot of talent, but you might not do so good either. So
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm more
Nope.
of a mixed pack guy, but I've got a few walkers now. There's no doubt about it.
No, I get that definitely. I mean, you're gonna have some dogs that tree better, some dogs that trail better, some dogs that are a little faster. You're always gonna have that difference, and if you're looking for that to fill a gap, if you're smart and go to certain people or certain breeders that are breeding for those specific traits that you're looking to bring in, say you have some really good trail dogs that don't miss a beat, that are good cold nosed dogs, but they lack in the tree,
Yep.
then it's worth bringing in a guy that has some great tree dogs, or even making an outcross and trying and seeing if you can bring a little more tree back into those dogs.
Absolutely.
Whether it's crossing into a treeing dog or switching it into some good English lines or things like that, that definitely can round out a dog, or just to round out your pack and kind of give you more a solid unit versus the guy that has the cold nosed dogs that can trail 2 days old, but they leave the tree or don't locate in the tree very good or things like that. So I think what you're saying is definitely a great thing for a lot of people to learn, is to have a well-rounded pack versus just a bunch of dirty cold-nosed dogs that don't finish out. You know what I mean? They can trail anything, but they can't finish the track. That's a different thing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I don't know. I obviously Arizona is a different game than Eastern Idaho. Up here, I think a lot of guys would honestly prefer a medium to warm nosed dog, just because we have a little bit more bears, and sometimes we don't want to spend 3 or 4 hours trying to cold trail a bear into jumping it and having the race go from there. Whereas we could, get down the road another mile, half mile, and probably have a good solid hot rig, you know.
Oh,
So
I agree completely when it comes to bears. I don't want to cold trail a bear anyway.
yeah,
Unless it's one that you're with someone that has a tag and it's a good big boar. That's a different story. But just to run bears, I don't want a cold trail one. I want a good rig, and I want a good hot race that all the dogs get in on, the young dogs can smell, and to go from there.
yeah,
Lions,
absolutely,
that's a different story, especially when you're switching from snow to dirt. That's when you really want those little bit colder nose dogs that can push a track and really stay with it versus those more medium to warm nose dogs.
absolutely, absolutely.
Um,
So what
yeah.
how many states are you hunting currently, man? Where are you traveling to?
So right now I'm not traveling at all to hunt, except for I just went to back up to Utah to hunt some mule deer. But my dogs are still in Utah. Where I'm at in Arizona, we took a we made a move for business. So right now I'm just working on business. So I sold a few dogs and left a few in Utah. So it's killing me right now. I'm not hunting like I should be.
Oh yeah,
I
that's
Because
tough.
I want to travel. I want to travel all over the U.S. I'd love to go run bears in every state that I can. I mean, I've hunted them in Idaho, hunted them in Utah, hunted them in New Mexico, hunted lions in both Utah and Idaho. I'll start hunting them here in Arizona once we get back out of the city where we're at right now. So I'm really interested to see the difference in where I was at in Utah to Arizona, especially on these lions with the different types of dirt and different elevations that they have down here. I'm really excited to learn all that and to see the different challenges that it pushes on these dogs that I have.
Absolutely. That's one of the best parts of taking your dogs into new country is, figuring out how they're going to perform in different elements. That's something awesome to see. Do you
Yeah.
do you Are you linked up with some guys down there? You think you're going to be doing it off a mule or horseback, or just the Lamborghinis?
Uh, I'm gonna do it both. I've got hooked up with some guys down here. Some hunt all off foot and at a truck. Some hunt off of mules. Eventually, I'm gonna get mules of my own because that's what I when it's just me myself hunting. I truly love just riding a good mule and watching them dogs work. You
Uh,
know, whether it's in snow or whether it's in dirt, I'm still there and I get to stay with them enough to really watch them. Whereas, like on a good snow lion, you cut them loose and they're gone, they burn.
right.
You know, unless you're a track star, you're not going to keep up with them. You might be able to hike into them if they make a lose and help them out, but most of the time, you cut them dogs loose, you're not going to see them again till the tree unless you can watch them through a spotting scope or binoculars in the right situation.
Absolutely. I've
Whereas,
I was
whereas you
just
know,
sorry. Go ahead.
you're good. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say I see
Whereas,
those.
like,
I see those guys. Hunting off of mule and horseback that are out there drag rounding, and I'm always jealous because lion season around here that December 1st. A guy just gets tired of the 2 a.m. race to the canyon. That just gets so old. So I think having the ability
that's
to hop on a mule and just go hit some country that's roadless would be a huge advantage as a houndsman. Just to have that capability and option.
Oh, definitely. So when I first moved from northern Utah to southern Utah, I got hooked up with the Meekum family there out of Tropic, and I spent a year pretty much just hunting with them as much as I could. Um, and to experience that where they hunt primarily off of mules and horseback versus the truck and the snowmobile that I was used to. I mean, it was like me learning how to hunt all over again. It was just a whole different world, you know. And I had these dogs that could go catch a snow lion, and then I drop them with hunters' dogs, and it's like, well, damn, like I thought I had some dogs, you know. But it's just something those dogs had never experienced. They'd never been put on a dirt lion. They'd never been hunted off of horses or mules. It was just a whole new thing to learn. And the more and more I hunted, I watched them progress. But it really intrigued me, and I think that's when at that moment when I started that is when hounds really like hooked so deep into me that I couldn't let it go. Like I loved it before then, but that's when it really hooked me and I was like, yeah, this is going to be a lifetime thing.
Yeah, that's. I would have to agree with that completely. I've stomped down a few drag ground lion tracks in my day, and I gotta just say that that's probably one of the more rewarding feelings. And usually it takes a lot of effort, so I'd say effort too is trailing a drag ground lion for hours and finally getting him put up that tree at the end of the day right before dark. I mean, that is one of the greatest feelings as a houndsman.
Oh, it's just a huge like accomplishment in your mind, but really it's the dogs that did it, but it's just amazing to see them buckle down and push it and to really just finish that out and a grind where it's hard on them and they really have to dig into the instincts and just dig in and go to work. And
Right.
that's what I love. Like
Absolutely.
if I could tell anyone that wants to experience like a true not I can't say like true form of it, but a whole different world than just turn the dogs loose and catch something, but to really experience the dogs in itself, a dry ground lion hunt would be what I would tell them to experience because they're going to fully experience watching those dogs up close do what they love and do what they're bred to do.
Man, that I think you just hit the nail right on the head. I think this big vote that's about to go down in Colorado, I think everyone's vote that actually should be counted should have to attend a drag ground lion hunt.
Oh, I would love
They
that.
can see how cruel it may be when that dog's grinding his nose. They can see if that's us forcing that dog to do something or if it's natural.
Oh,
That'd be a
exactly.
that'd be a great. I mean, I don't think they could do any better test than that, honestly.
No, no, I agree. And to truly watch that dog work, but like at the same time, I've thrown it out to some people that are like, "Oh, it's cruel. You make them do that." I said, "All right, you come with me bear hunting, and when my dogs rig, I'm gonna hand you dogs on a leash, and I want to see you keep those dogs with you. Hold them back and see how that works for you."
Yeah, that, that is no kidding, man. You get a couple big dogs on a leash. I know mine have taken me skiing more than once.
Exactly. I mean, they have so much love and so much drive for it that there's no way in hell you could force a dog to have that much like drive for it. Like you can't. To force an animal to do something, they're not going to have that much passion or drive for it. It's just naturally in them.
Oh, absolutely. I've got a pretty I've got a pretty interesting story about that. When I was a young boy, but to the this is talking to the drive of a dog. My dad had this dog. His name was Voodoo. I think he bought him from Lance Shockley, if I remember right. But don't hold me to that because I was just a young boy. But anyway, this dog was a one dog bear pack. I mean, he was the one that's kind of a vet bill we were talking about earlier, but was definitely afraid of no bear. And anyway, we were hunting some country. It's pretty rough, kind of where I grew up hunting, and they went up over the top and into this hole. And this hole actually went into the ground about 20 yards and then opened up back there. So when we got there, they were having a brawl in this hole, about 10 dogs and the bear, and you'd have to belly crawl in there and grab the dogs by the back feet and then wiggle out. And pretty soon it was just Voodoo and the old bear in there. And my dad had a hunter again, and anyway, he pokes in there and the bear's coming out. Hunter shoots at the bear, I don't know, a couple times, probably 4 or 5 times. The bear comes running out. I don't think he ever touched it. But old Voodoo never old Voodoo never comes out of the cave. And that's kind of an eerie
Oh
feeling. I know
no.
all the houndsmen that'll be listening to this know what I'm talking about
Oh,
right now. Shots into a cave and then your dog doesn't come out. Everyone's thinking the same thing. And
yep.
so my dad crawls in there, scoops old Voodoo up, and we're all thinking, he's done. And we start looking him over, and there's no bullet hole in this dog. So all we could figure is that bear must have smacked him pretty good before he come out of that cave and just KO'd him. And we start, looking him over. This sucker wakes up. He shakes his head. He hears the other dogs and gone. He joins the race, and he was the last bear. He was the last dog on that bear. He walked him until dark. We finally pulled him off. Actually, I believe the hunter missed him again with his rifle. But you want to talk about the drive of a dog? That was something that turned me. I mean, I kind of judge all my dogs off of that dog. So after seeing that,
Oh,
I mean, it was something different in him. He was gonna get the bear, or he was gonna die trying, and it's kind of I it might be a little harsh, but that's kind of how I judge my dogs now. I want a whole pack of dogs that are gonna get them or die trying.
well, that's the thing. That's that heart that you can't force a dog to have, and it's really hard to breed for that as well as what I've learned talking to some guys, because you can have a great litter of pups that are proven dogs, but even one or two of them is going to stand out with desire and heart, and I think it's really hard well, it's hard to judge on a pup which one's going to have it, but also to just breed straight for that. I think that kind of just comes in the individual itself.
Yeah, I'd completely agree. You could have a whole litter work out, but there's just those dogs that are something a little different and they're just special that come along every once in a while. And I don't think there's any way to, determine what dog or how to get that dog. But, if you're lucky enough to get a step into the woods with a couple of them, it's definitely life changing. And I think that'll elevate it's probably going to elevate your whole pack of dogs just because the way you're looking at dogs after seeing a dog with that kind of drive and determination.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. I mean, there's always going to be that one dog that changes your perspective, whether it's for good or for bad, or things that you want or things that you don't want. But when you have a top level dog when it comes to drive or to desire, that you really do, you start to base everything off of it. Like, well, why can't you just act like this dog? Like, I know you got it in you. Why are you quitting after 4 hours when this dog's been in it 8 hours and he's still going?
Absolutely.
You know, it can, yeah, I definitely get it that it feels a little harsh sometimes when you're judging everything off of this dog that you had 10 years ago, or that you still have, or that you've hunted with. Even if you've hunted with someone else's dog that's just a badass, mean, dirty, nasty dog that is just phenomenal. And then you kind of just look at that and be like, well, that's what I want. That's what I want to bring out in my dogs. And it's hard because really a lot of that is just in the dog itself.
Absolutely. I agree 100% with what you just said. And to add to that, kind of back to your story about hunting with the Meekum boys, the first day you showed up and your dogs probably looked at you like, what the hell are we doing? Are you serious, Dad? But I think as far as getting
Yep.
better as a houndsman, you have to be willing to put your pride to the side. I mean, if I had to give advice to a guy who was just getting into it, wanting to get better, the best advice I think I could give was go find whoever you think's got the best pack of dogs in the woods, and go hunt with them as much as you can.
That's exactly right.
Because I mean,
Yep. I think
sorry, go ahead.
you'll learn more from them and watching their dogs work than it'll put you so far ahead that you won't screw up what you learn, but also an inexperienced houndsman can screw up a good dog in the first. And I'm guilty of it. When I was first into it and had puppies, I guarantee you I ruined a dog or two in bringing out its full potential because of mistakes that I made before I was more experienced and had more knowledge about it.
Absolutely. I don't remember that. I've heard guys break it down all sorts of ways. It's 50% dog, 50% handler, or 60-40, whatever that spread may be. Um, I would have to say a lot of the best guys. What my dad always said growing up was the guys with the best dogs get to hunt the most, and there's definitely a lot of truth to that. But I would say a big part, on that note of getting better is putting that pride to the side. Because when you're getting started as a young guy, when you first start catching game, you catch your first snowed in lion track and you're like, I got a badass dog now, I'm the shit. But turns out you go and hunt with the Meekum boys in the dirt or whoever it may be, and now your dog's looking at you like, what are we doing here? And it's just that
Yep.
willingness to put the pride aside, say, okay, I'm not the best, this isn't our game. How can I learn? How can I take advantage of this situation and get myself better? Even though I may not have the best dogs here, what can I learn so I'm more effective and better the next time I come back?
That's exactly right. I mean, I don't think you could say it any better than that, to set your pride aside and just say, all right, we're in a different environment. Something's different. We're learning. I'm going to learn from this guy that's been here and done it in this environment. I might have came from here and I'm great at catching snow lions. Like, I can catch a snow lion great, but you go and hunt bears. Like, that's a different thing. Go and hunt lion, a dirt lion or even a bobcat. A bobcat versus a snow lion, that's a different game in itself there too. And so I think that definitely speaks a lot when you have to set your pride aside and say, hey, you know, this isn't my game, but I'm going to learn all I can from that for sure.
Absolutely. And I guess the pride thing is a big one, because I think, hound hunting is kind of a prideful thing. Everyone wants to have the best dogs and be the best, and I guess that's why I'd have to say, if I was going to give any advice to anyone who's getting into it, find someone who's got good dogs that's willing to take you hunting, and you know just be open
Exactly.
minded and willing to learn.
I I agree completely, and I think that's I don't think I made that mistake when I first got in, but I was so set on trying to do it myself instead of learn from someone else, and that crippled me at first, for sure. Until I was like, yeah, you know what? I need to go with some of these other guys. I need to learn, even to hunt my dog with theirs, because their dogs are going to help teach mine more than I could ever teach it. Them dogs will learn
Absolutely.
better from other dogs than they can from any handler, for sure.
Yep, and that's a question I get all the time. Well, how do you get your dogs to do that? How do you train them? I say, oh well, I just put them out there. I mean, if I got a young dog that I think's gonna do good, I try and run him with one of my finished dogs that I know is gonna do good. Teach him teach him good
Yep.
habits anytime you can. So
That's exactly right. And that's, I agree. And that's what's hard when you first get into it, is if you don't have that finished dog, you either got to buy one or you need to go hunt with someone. Either way, that's what I would do. But even if you buy that finished dog, I still think you need to go learn from someone that's been there and done that, so you understand what that dog's doing when it's doing it. I mean, that dog's going to teach you a lot, but there are certain things that you're not going to understand unless you learn from someone's experience.
on that note, and I hate to quit referring to this New Mexico trip, but we had a pretty good trip.
You're good.
Um, on back to kind of ruining a dog, my buddy Troy and I, on the last day, that day I broke my truck, we had the a split race, and we had dogs going three different directions. And in my younger days, I would have been looking at my lead dog saying, that bear went that way, my lead dog's going this way. But a big thing that I've had to learn, and it elevated my game, is I just need to trust my dogs. A lot of
Yep.
guys get caught up and this is my lead dog and he's going that way, so that has to be where it went. But in reality, I think that saying of every dog has his day really applies to hound hunting, because if you're out there doing it a lot,
Does.
you just got to learn to trust them dogs. Because I've seen it, had it a lot this year. I've seen it a lot over the years. You dump the box, and sometimes it's not that lead dog that ends up under the tree. Sometimes it's that year-and-a-half-old pup that said, I got him in my nose and he went this way. So I
Yep.
trust your dogs, and I think that's a big part of it, is just trusting your dogs.
Yeah, oh, definitely. And sometimes that what comes with that is you got to be willing to put in the boot tracks to
Oh,
go see what's happening. You can't just assume, oh, the lead dogs went this way, the pup peeled off, the pup's wrong, I'm going to tone this dog. That's a good way to ruin a good young dog coming up. Whether you got to be willing to put in the miles to do those dogs justice. That's one thing I told myself when I first got into these dogs, is that I will do whatever I can to make it to them no matter what. They put in their effort, my ass has got to put in my own effort.
absolutely. And that was, I'm really glad you said that. I mean, I'm having flashbacks as we talk, because I've taken over the dogs more or less. I hunt them about 95% of the time, but my dad still gets out there every once in a while with me, and that was always kind of the thing. He never cared if I took the kids as a young man, little boy. He didn't care if I took them, but our rule is if you let them go, you go and get them. So it kind of doesn't matter where they go. We're gonna lace them up and we're gonna go get them and bring them back. At least we're gonna give her hell and do
Yep.
everything we can to get it done.
Yeah. Exactly. I mean, yeah, I mean, we all have those instances where a dog spends a night on the mountain or a collar malfunctions or things like that, but we all do everything we can to prevent that, and there's always situations that you can't prevent, and you might have to go back the next day. You might have to get, some ropes to lower yourself down off ledges or lower a buddy down. I've been there. We've had to lower each other down to get dogs and throw dogs up and then pull each other back up, because sometimes it's just that way, and you don't always have everything with you, and so you'll learn next time. You'll be prepared, but it's
Absolutely.
definitely you try and prevent that as much as you can, for sure.
Yes. Yes, sir. The old chain lead chain repelling gear. Gotta love that.
Yep. Yeah, I've done that a time or two for sure. Or the old have a lariat tied on the mule, and that's what you end up using, is the lariat to lower yourself down with a buddy and grab dogs, and that's just the way it is.
Yeah, I mean, the bat. I mean, so I just kind of sparked me, but I'd have to say, one of the worst things that you could do to a dog, in my opinion, is leave him under a tree with game.
Yeah,
If like I've walked into the dark many of times, and it's something that's always bugged me throughout the hound community, because I'd see a lot of laziness, back to bumping into guys on the mountain, wherever you may be. Son, and teach their own. I'm not saying that my way is the right way, but if they're out there working, I'm gonna be working. I don't care if I've got to walk into the dark at 2 in the morning and back to the truck at daylight. If they're out there and they're
yep.
still working, you better be out there, still be working to get to them. Because I just feel like that bond of them sitting under the tree for several hours, however it may be, and then you showing up. I think that's really how you finish a dog, is creating that bond is just as important as anything else. Shooting out game, letting them chew on it, having a good start, creating that bond to where they know, however long they stay and bay at this cat or bear, whatever it may be, they know you're going to show up. I think that's very important.
Oh, I agree completely, and that's a thing you don't hear a lot of people talk about, is that bond that instills in those dogs when they've been there and you show up time after time after time. I think that really will, it kind of just puts a little more drive in him, saying, if I finish this, he's going to show up. I'm going to do my job, he'll do his job, and that, I think, like you said, really can be what truly can finish a dog out. I agree completely.
Absolutely, it brings them. I mean, you hit it on the head right there. It brings it out of them to finish the job. They know
Yeah,
if they put them up the tree, they can get their reward, or one way or another. Whether it's they get to chew on the critter, or they get to go home and get fed and watered and put away and get ready for the next day.
exactly. Yeah, exactly. I think on that, I'd love to keep talking for more hours, but I think with that, I don't think it can be said better than that. That, what we've talked about hasn't been as much hunting as it is about dogs, and with finishing and not finishing, but like progressing with these dogs, and that final touch of just, you got to put in the work if they're going to put in the work. Like, I don't think you can say it any better than that. Don't,
Absolutely, it's
I mean,
it's
you
a
run
team
into
effort.
guys that won't.
Gosh, I'm sorry. I don't mean to keep on cutting you off.
Oh.
I was just gonna
You're
say
just fine.
it's definitely a team effort, and I mean they're to me they're family. Like it's
Yep.
and that's I think that can be what separates some good houndsmen from some really good houndsmen is the way they take care of their dogs and that bond they've created for them.
With that, I think like kind of what I'd like to say is there's people that run hounds and there's houndsmen, and there's a difference.
Absolutely.
Um,
Well,
with that,
I
what?
really appreciate you having me on here, man. I won't hold you up any longer, but
Oh, you're good. I really, really enjoyed it, and I'm grateful for your time. I had a blast talking and learning, and just just talking dogs. You can never go wrong sitting down for an hour and talking dogs with anyone.
oh, absolutely, man. And I appreciate what you're doing, and I love to support you any way we can. And let's keep on fighting for the kids.
Oh, yeah, definitely, definitely. Awesome. Well, thanks again, Connor.
Yeah, thank you, man. You have a good night.
Yep, you too. Thanks for joining us on another episode of the Hound Talk podcast with the Cold Strike crew. If you like what we're doing, like, subscribe, give us a review. It means a lot to us. Thank you for your support. Now go load them dogs and take the kid hunting.